What would you say to somebody who's coming across your work for the first time?
Mouth breathing is a disaster for your health. 11 years ago, when all of my respiratory problems that I had quite a few, suddenly went away once I learned how to breathe properly.
How much truth actually is there in mewing, and is it just something that silly, insecure teenagers do?
It is not important for young kids to mew. It's important for young kids to have proper oral posture. These are two completely different things. You will never resolve anxiety unless you get control of your breathing. When you're constantly over-breathing, you're sending your brain signals that you are stressed out, and then your brain reacts by having you breathe too much. Learning how to breathe deep and slowly through your nose can really transform your health.
It's interesting because a lot of people tell me that I have a really small mouth, so maybe that has to do with how I chewed when I was a kid. But anyway, we recently interviewed Wim Hof, who I know you spoke about in your book as well, and so he's a man who has completed feats such as staying submerged in ice for hours on end. He's run a half marathon nearly naked in the Arctic. And most people will know him, and most of our listeners will have watched that interview as well. And you credit his ability to complete these feats to Tamo breathing. But could you explain for our listeners what Tamo breathing is, perhaps with a short history of it?
So Wim studied various breathing modalities in order to tune his body up to do all of these amazing things. And one of these modalities is this ancient practice of Tumo that developed from the Bon Buddhists thousands of years ago. What this does is it has you overbreathe, breathing like that, and then holding your breath and compressing that energy, that breath, that heat in your body. And we know that this is a real thing because there have been different studies looking at these Bon Buddhist monks breathing in this manner and heating up their extremities by, 7, 8, 9 degrees Celsius, just by breathing in this way. So Wim has used that, and he's used that to sit in an ice bath for almost 2 hours at a time. I know Wim. He is such an amazing character, and he's inspired millions and millions of people to take control of their own health. And this is just one of the things that he uses in his toolbox to help people control the heat in their bodies, but also to help heal themselves of chronic conditions.
For a beginner, maybe short of chucking yourself in an ice bath or going to the Himalayas, what's a protocol somebody could do to get started with it? You mentioned just quite quickly, but maybe you could expand on a protocol somebody could do to get started with that kind of overbreathing.
Yeah, Wim offers, there's some free YouTube stuff. You can watch Wim do it. That's a good introductory way of exploring Tumo breathing. There's also other classes that people teach. There's some books. It's a little harder to learn it from books. But I don't have the time to teach you it right now. If we had a half an hour, I could teach you how to do it. And it absolutely, beyond any sort of placebo effect, really heats you up. I mean, I've used this when I've been very cold and was amazed by how effective it is. If you've ever been in an ice bath, that's very big out here in California right now. Breathing is an essential part of getting through those 2-3 minutes. And if you don't have your breathing locked in, it's really hard. And I believe almost impossible. I watch people come in and hold their breath and all this and then leave. So your breathing is fundamental to controlling your nervous system control.
Yeah, I am. Just as a personal anecdote, I have a little tub at home which I use with my dad. He's very much into ice baths, and before we use it, so I've done it a few times, kind of like 7-8 minutes in 4 degrees. But every time we kind of do like 12 minutes of just breath work, and then once you're in, it's all about controlling the breathing. So you feel your internally, for those listening who might want to try it, it's such a great feeling to feel the self kind of heating up from the inside. It's quite extraordinary. And following from that, I was wondering how that would then lead to health benefits. How does that work, maybe from a more scientific perspective?
Sure. So staying in an ice bath 7-8 minutes, very impressive. I can't last that long. And you notice that if you were just to hop in that ice bath without the breathing warm up, be a very different experience. I don't think you could make it 7-8 minutes unless you were really forced, really pushing yourself. So these two things go hand in hand. This is the whole peanut butter and chocolate of wellness right now, is ice bath and breath work. What's interesting is there have been studies of this looking at people with autoimmune diseases, looking at people who were exposed to the endotoxin version of E. coli after just 4 days of being trained in ice bathing and breathing. And those who were exposed to it suffered no symptoms of when they were injected with the endotoxin of E. coli. And people who weren't ice bathing and breathing suffered terrible symptoms. So we can look at things like CRP, C-reactive proteins, and you can just also look at these people with these chronic health conditions, specifically autoimmune diseases like MS and psoriasis and more. And they just don't have these conditions, or they're significantly reduced after a few weeks of doing this. So this is supposed to be impossible. You're not supposed to be able to consciously take control of your immune function, but it turns out we can. And so biology books and medical books have had to be rewritten around this new protocol. So we're just at the beginning of it, of really understanding it. And it's fascinating having heard about this 8 years ago, 9 years ago, and it was very fringy. And doctors said, whatever you do, don't do this. You're going to have a heart attack. This is dangerous. It has not been studied. And here we are 10 years later, and at least half of the doctors I know have ice baths in their house. They are huge fans of it. They're huge fans of breath work. So sometimes it just takes a little while for the rest of society to catch up. But, beyond that, I can speak to it personally. It has transformed my health. I'm a huge fan of it. It's not for everybody. So also use, your own judgment if it's right for you to explore.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed the clip from that episode. If you'd like to check out the full interview with James Nestor, you can click right here. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave your comments below.